Kathy Hobbs predicts her own death. I can predict songs on the radio, but not my death. I don't want to. The kidnapping and murder of 16-year-old Kathy Hobbs is so odd that it was featured on an episode of the cult classic series Unsolved Mysteries. Okay, this is a weird thing to say, but if I did get murdered, I would love to be on one of those shows, like Cold Case Files or something, because I love watching them. Like, I'm dead, might as well try to get famous out of it. After her death in 1987, Hobbs' parents and friends disclosed that all her life, Hobbs had suffered from premonitions that foreshadowed her death at 16. In her teen years, she developed agoraphobia and refused to leave the house. But on her 16th birthday, she believed the curse had been broken. She hit 16, so must not be real. Or so say her family and friends. Just 3 months later, she was attacked coming home from buying a paperback novel and murdered with blunt force trauma to the head. Yeah, that's not pretty. In 1989, a man named Michael Lee Lockhart was charged and convicted with Hobbs' murder, though Lockhart never confessed. The internet is divided on whether he actually shot Hobbs, but the real point of contention is the young woman's premonitions. How was she able to predict a seemingly random act of violence? I mean, I think women's intuition is a real thing. You know, some people have that really strong gut feeling, and I bet it can be so strong that, yeah, you can have premonitions about the future. Some people can. They are really in touch with their spiritual side, whatever you want to call it. But I definitely believe that, yeah, she probably did predict it. The details were unclear, but she knew something was going to happen. The boy in the chimney. Very descriptive. Wonder what's gonna happen. In 2008, teenager Josh Maddox left the house where he lived with his dad to run an errand. You run errands for your parents? Ew. He disappeared, and 7 years later, his remains were found in the fetal position, stuffed into the chimney of a nearby historic cabin. 7 years later, they couldn't find him, and then out of nowhere, they just find him in a chimney? They must have gotten a random tip, because honestly, you know, evidence dries up. That's why it turns into a cold case, because there's nothing left and there's nothing else to do until you get some new information from someone ready to confess. His body, devoid of wounds, showed no signs of a struggle. He was just literally stuffed into a chimney. When the teen's skeleton was found, his knees reportedly were above his head and a hand was covering his face. Yeah, he was stuck. Maybe he fell in? The strangest details were slowly released to the public in the following weeks. He had been clothed only in a thermal undershirt, and the rest of his clothes were lying on the floor inside the cabin. So he intentionally took his clothes off, whether he chose to or he was forced to. Construction workers confirmed that rebar on the chimney's opening meant he would not have been able to climb down, so he must have been trying to climb up. To make matters worse, an anonymous Reddit post later detailed a rumor that Maddox had been coerced by a friend who went on to become a serial killer. And this is what started it. He killed his friend, and it sparked this weird, evil thing in him that turned him into a crazy killer. Comment below what you think happened. If you've ever heard of this case, I've never heard of it up until now. The Yuba County Five, who all had mild mental or psychiatric issues and mysteriously went missing. 5 young men went missing in California. That's a little too close to home. After seemingly being chased up a mountain in their car. Months later, 4 of their 5 bodies were found malnourished, but the 5th was never found. People think since the men were mentally challenged, they were targeted, or that the 5th man murdered them, but that theory seems unlikely. I don't know, that sounds very likely. If one of the bodies was never found, he was probably the killer. Because if they were being hunted, then why would they only let one of them live and then kidnap him? Makes no sense. Elisa Lam. You guys have probably heard of this girl. Just listen. In 2013, guests staying at the Cecil Hotel in Los Angeles complained to management that the hotel's drinking water tasted weird. They drank this water, remember that. And then the body of 21-year-old Elisa Lam was later found floating in one of the hotel's water tanks. They were drinking water that was contaminated by a decomposing body. Lam, it appeared, had been pushed into the tank and locked inside. Her death went viral when detectives released security footage of the young woman standing in the hotel's elevator and contorting her limbs the night she was killed. This is a weird description, but I've seen the video. She's just walking around the halls of the hotel into the elevator, and then she exits the elevator, and that's the last you see of her in the footage. But it's the way she was walking was so weird. It's like she was drunk or drugged, and she was being led by someone we couldn't see. She might have been possessed, we have no idea. After she leaves the elevator in the security footage, that's the last thing they see of her. And guests in the hotel had also been affected by a mysterious local outbreak of tuberculosis around the time of her death. So overall, no one had a good vacation at that hotel. Hannah Upp's disappearances. 23-year-old Pennsylvania resident Hannah Upp has led a life peppered with disappearances. Seemingly without a direct cause, Upp enters a fugue state and disappears off the grid, cutting off communication with her friends and family, and after a while, she's often found near water. Doctors diagnosed Upp with a diagnosis of dissociative fugue, a rare condition in which people lose access to their memory and their personal identity. They forget who they are, occasionally adopting a new personality, and may abruptly embark on a long journey. Because all of a sudden they're this new person and they have to go live this whole new life. They don't remember anything. She disappeared again last year and her belongings were found near the ocean on St. Thomas. The strangest thing about her case is the fact that her parents seemed apathetic, or mystical even, when asked about their missing daughter by the press. Well, they're used to this. There's nothing you can do except try to keep her safe. So what, she was never found after this last time she disappeared? Where's the details? The disappearance of Bobby Dunbar, who was returned to his family, but turned out to be another kid. If you've ever seen the Angelina Jolie movie called The Changeling, very good movie, you've probably heard of this story. Basically, one day, mom comes home and her son's not there. She tries to report him kidnapped, but the police make her wait a couple days. And eventually, I'm not sure after how long, the police say they found her son and they return him, but she swears up and down that it is not her son. They say she's crazy, that is her son. They had scientists fake reports saying that it was her DNA, and they just made her think she was crazy when she knew that was not her kid. Long story short, they never actually found her son, and she's been looking for him to this day. I think she's probably passed away by now, but she never found him. It's really sad. Dyatlov Pass. I know I said that wrong. I'm sorry. Guys, don't leave me alone. In 1959, Russian amateur explorer and backpacker Igor Dyatlov led a group of friends and one random man into the snowy mountains. Snow is so hard to walk in. I walked in it and it literally feels like a whole workout, just going up one hill. They were later found dead, their bodies strewn over the mountain. Their tents nearby had been torn apart from the inside, and Dyatlov and his buddies had apparently run from the safety of their campsite into the woods. Most mysteriously, the hikers were either wearing each other's clothes or were nearly naked in the snow, and several suffered internal injuries with no outward sign of trauma. So it looks like they escaped from inside their tents and then they ran into the woods. And they probably got lost, or whoever was hunting them caught up to them. But it is very easy to get too tired from walking in really deep snow and to just pass out or something. They might have just gotten lost and they couldn't find their way back to camp. The Circleville Letters. In 1977, a school bus driver named Mary Gillespie started receiving anonymous angry letters in the mail. Someone had found out about her affair with the school superintendent and wanted her to call it off. It was probably the superintendent's wife. Later, her husband Ron received a letter of his own, and after a few weeks tried to ignore the threats, he told his children he was taking his gun to confront the letter writer and promptly drove his truck into a tree. He was killed instantly. Years later, the letters began arriving again, though Mary had remarried the superintendent and had nothing left to hide. Okay, so I guess the superintendent was single before. They were eventually traced to her former brother-in-law, but he didn't fit the bill perfectly. It's a little bit of a sketchy case. Brother-in-law? Why would he be jealous? That's gross. Comment below who you think did it. But anyways, that's it for some of the creepiest mysteries that have never been solved. Comment below what you think happened to these people. And as always, please subscribe, turn on notifications, follow me on social media. Links are down below, and I'll see you tomorrow.